I'm sure all of you in this room can relate to having a pivotal moment in your life. Right off the bat, I want you to raise your hand if something just came to your mind. Well, let me tell you my story. July 2nd, 2004, the best day of my life. Not only because it was the day I was born, but both because the day I was born, because only the first of only 3 years that I've ever experienced being the youngest child. In those 3 short years, I was the baby of the family, the one who got it all. The attention, the love, the best gifts, the list goes on. However, that all changed when my little brother was born 2 years later, and I turned into something I never expected to become, the isolated middle child. Before I continue, I just want a simple show of hands. How many of you are middle children? As you can see, most people aren't. Therefore, it's extremely important others are able to understand what we go through. Although this graph isn't based on reliable scientific data, it's something I can most definitely relate to, and I'm sure anyone who just raised their hand can relate to as well. The middle doesn't have the best reputation. Think about it. No one wants to sit in the middle seat of the plane or the middle seat of the car. Just think about how many times you were driving with your friends and were called sitting on an end seat. But put that into perspective. That's my life. These things everyone hates, but I'm forced to be used to. Stuck between my older sister and younger brother. My older sister being able to have all the room and spread out her legs, while my younger brother gets to look out the window for entertainment. And me, well, I'm stuck in the middle. No room, no window. Growing up, I always wondered what exactly it meant when I would hear others' comments, "Oh boy, she's the middle child. Make sure she gets enough attention," or "Good luck." Why me? This is the most attention I ever received since my younger brother was born, and it made me feel worse and worse about myself. Why wouldn't people be saying good luck to my younger brother for having 2 older sisters, or my older sister for having to take care of 2 younger siblings? I always wondered why it had to be the middle child. It didn't make sense. This is when I decided to do my own research and found out about a condition called middle child syndrome. A common belief that middle children are inherently overshadowed, overlooked, quiet, neglected, rebellious, the list goes on. Middle child syndrome is not a psychological disorder, but rather an emotional one. Have you ever raised your hand in a room full of people and no one calls on you? Have you ever reflected on how that's made you feel? Not being the chosen one that gets called on? That's big middle child energy. According to Melissa Thompson, a licensed marriage and family therapist, middle child syndrome starts when you feel like you disappeared between your siblings. If you ever watched Brady Bunch or Full House, the middle children in these shows are a great example of what it truly means to be the middle child. They're constantly fighting for attention and being left out. Seeing the media portray the middle child in a negative light only boosted the stereotype. Starting high school, I was strictly known as my sister's little sister. Every time I walk in the hallway, or even at parties, people I didn't talk to would get my attention by saying, "Kayla's sister, come here." Or, "Oh my god, hey, are you Kayla's sister?" This made me feel so small. Not being able to express myself or be who I wanted to be, because I was always known as someone else. Seeing people places gave me an ongoing fear of what my sister has told them about me. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but the majority of the time it's hard to be myself when I'm constantly compared to her. Even in my own family, I could never have friends over, but she could. I'd be limited to a maximum of 2 friends while she could have her whole friend group over. I could never borrow her clothes, but she could borrow mine. Oh god, if she was to ever find me in her room simply looking at in her closet, I would never hear the end of it. From her, my mom, my grandma. Even if I was to simply forget to take the garbage pails down the driveway, my punishment would be my phone getting taken away for 2 or 3 days. If she did that, it would simply be overlooked. It just wasn't fair. Middle child syndrome develops in different ways for everyone because we don't have these unpleasant talks about defining our positions within our families and how they influence us. Growing up, my parents focused all their attention on my older sister, since they were navigating life with a team for the very first time. The first one to graduate high school, the first one to go to college, the first one to start driving. While my brother, as the baby of the family, had a privilege of convincing my parents to let him play video games until 2 a.m. I felt a big deal of responsibility, always having to navigate uncharted territory on my own. Since I had my sister as my role model, they expected that I already knew everything I had to do to achieve the milestones that my sister has already overcome. I felt like my life was a race, always trying to stay ahead of my brother and trying to catch up with my sister. I constantly felt left out and on the sidelines, listening and observing, because I believed my words had no value. I would constantly act out and get angry at my parents. My negative, attention-seeking behavior, such as refusing to do my homework or take out the garbage or do my chores, engaged them in endless battles, but to me, any attention was better than none. My self-doubt and low confidence were things I was used to. I mean, after all, when there's a whole syndrome named after you, it kind of gets in your head. According to Dr. Dramis, the stereotypical middle child is more sensitive, more distant from the family, even when they get along well, and often find a path that's very different from others, so they have a defined sense of self. As I and my siblings started to get older, within the past year specifically, my family quickly realized that I was special. Not only was I the nicest and most caring, but I also had big goals ahead of me that I knew I was going to achieve. I'm the only one in my family to ever want to pursue a career in the medical field. I learned that the middle child is someone who can sympathize with his siblings, and most importantly, bring them together. It doesn't have to be a curse. I learned how to tap into the underrated qualities of a middle kid. I opted not to accept middle child syndrome and instead began to trust myself. I learned not to care about the attention of others and instead turned that into a drive to succeed. I actually learned that middle children can be a lot of fun to have around because they're more tuned into themselves and they're a little more distant from family expectations. I also learned that middle children are the most successful in their family, and actually that half our presidents and other notable leaders such as Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, and Susan B. Anthony are all middles. As Sam Du Bois from Stanford Graduate School of Business explains in his talk about middle children, being a middle means having the humility to take advice from others, but also the confidence to know that you have a voice and that you have worth. With all this in mind, what exactly can we learn from the middle child? First, we can learn generosity. Being a middle kid, you learn not to get attached to your things because you know you won't have it long anyways. Second, we can learn empathy. As a middle child, you become empathetic and understanding. You know how it is to be the elder and the younger sibling. You can easily relate to both sides, so you can relate to anyone. And lastly, we learn self-discipline. You don't get the special treatment that the other sibling gets through the pampering the younger one receives. This can teach you discipline, as you learn early on the differences between your wants and needs. Because you're only given what is needed most of the time. Growing up, my sister always got what she wanted. The second she asked for anything, she got it. And my brother, he gets anything he wants. With me, it's always a problem, and I get questioned, and I never get it. So that's why most of the time, I only get what is needed. But I stand here now as a senior, getting ready for college. I'm about to start the next chapter of my life. I constantly think about how it would be different if I was the oldest or the youngest. Maybe I'd be more outgoing or more confident, but I wouldn't be the determined and hardworking person I am today. My hope is that awareness gets brought up about middle children, and it can grow, and we can stop these problems before it happens. We can aware parents and other people to give middle children what they actually need. I want you to take a look to your right and left again and remember who was a middle child. You got a better understanding of the peers around you. I hope as you got into the lens of my life, you now realize the struggles and emotional impact middle children go through and how birth order has no impact on what you can achieve in life. Ironically, I thrive as a middle child. I cannot see myself in any other way. I find confidence in knowing I'm good at keeping peace in my family. I seek advice from my sister, but I also enjoy guiding, bossing, and encouraging my brother around. I like living from the middle, and I encourage you all to do the same. That's it.